Good afternoon, everyone. Our moderator, I hope, will be joining us shortly. But in the meantime, I'm going to pitch it for us. My name is Louise Gale. I'm with Alberta Labor and Immigration. And I'm just going to pull up what we had. So I'm just going to begin by introducing our presenters. So as you can see on your screen, we have Shannon Barford and Joly Starkevich. I hope I got it right. Yes, awesome. And Martina Verai is with the town. Tim Shane, our moderator, will be joining us shortly. Tim is with Community Futures. I just want to make sure to remind everyone that this will be recorded and be available through the town, and also the chamber and myself will be sending it out to our email list as well. So just pulling this up. Okay. So I guess I'm going to begin with just explaining a little bit about myself. I work regionally. I cover Jasper, Hinton, and Edson. I work closely with my municipalities, my chambers, and Community Futures to provide any sort of business support that I can. Like today, arranging this kind of meeting, bringing in speakers, providing anything that we can to support, especially during difficult times like this. So that's what I do. Kathy from the Edson Chamber really hoped to be with us today, but she was double booked. So she just wanted to share as well that she is there to support you in any way that she can. You can reach out. She's available through your chamber. And with that, I am going to ask Martino if he could please share a little bit about his role.
Hello, my name is Martino Verhege. I'm the General Manager for Infrastructure and Planning at the town of Edson. With regards to what the town is doing this year and what we're going forward with is the town has reviewed its budgets with regards to non-critically essential services. It has found trimmings where and as it can, and has also reduced the amount of staffing and labor available to provide services this year, to provide itself with the opportunity to provide community supports. One of those supports that we're looking forward to providing is looking at how we support our businesses. Part of that will be in what will actually end up coming to or amount to a 5% reduction from what the taxes were anticipated to be for 2020 for the business sector, as well as some reductions related to utilities. Again, that's not necessarily a 5% reduction from the previous year, but a 5% reduction from what was anticipated for this year. But that also provides for an opportunity for the town to provide business supports in different ways. Part of that with this right now is trying to make these types of connections where we're helping people connect with the information and connect with the businesses they need to be successful, which in this cases right now are connecting to the information necessary to access the significant provincial and federal grants and other programs which are out there. With that, that will also help guide us as we start to see where our continued supports need to be provided in Edson over the next year and more, where the town can be the most effective in either changing how it produces fees, changes how it produces services, the types of supports that it's available with, or the partnerships it manages. And so this is part of our starting process to try to connect business with the people who can provide them the most effective means of information or support during this time. Otherwise, I'm here as just a panelist, as a host, to provide information as requested from the town. Otherwise, I defer to the experts and accountants that we have.
Thanks, Martino. So how this is going to work today, folks, is that we will be having Shannon and Joly provide information for us. They will take questions at the end of the presentation. You can ask your questions by typing them into the chat. Down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see that there's a little box that says chat. If you click that open, you're able to type a message. At the end of the presentation, we will go through the questions that come in and get our experts to help us with that. I am not going to try and tell you the name of their business. They've agreed to help me out with that. Without further ado, thank you so much, ladies. I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, so Louise managed to get through my last name, which was great. I'm Joly Starkevich. I'm one of 5 partners at our firm of Mergaert, Barford, Williams, Joly, and Starkevich. We are an Edson CPA firm. We've been operating in Edson for many years. So many of you may know us, whether or not you deal at our office. You've probably heard that we're in town, and we're just here to provide you with some information on the different supports that the government has put out with respect to the COVID relief measures. So that would be measures for businesses as well as individuals. So what I'm going to try to do is just provide a brief overview of how the programs appear to be running or are proposed to run. Now, I don't know if many of you are following following these things, but they do seem to change every other day. So it's been a bit of a process to try to keep up to date with all of these things. But we're doing our best, and we're hoping to give you the most up-to-date information. So I'm going to start with I'm going to kind of run with the wage subsidies. So I'll talk about the 10% wage subsidy as well as the 75% wage subsidy, and those are both for employers. Now those subsidies can happen sort of together. One and the other, qualifying for one does not exclude you from the other. So I'm going to start with the 10% wage subsidy, which was the one that was released first. Now this subsidy is fairly broadly available to small and medium businesses. And the eligibility criteria are quite broad. You need to employ individuals in Canada, have a registered payroll account as at March 18th, be a small business that is eligible for the small business limit, or you could be an individual or a partnership, or a nonprofit or a charity. So basically what this subsidy allows is for you to claim 10% of the gross wages that you pay to your employees, as long as you can still pay the CPP and EI remittances, but you can claim 10% of the gross wages paid between March 18th and June 19th, and to a maximum of $1,375 per employee and $25,000 per employer. So if you're still paying your employees, you're most definitely, if you're a small to medium-sized business, you can most definitely, you're more than likely, to qualify for this one. And the way that you claim this subsidy is you simply reduce your payroll remittance that is being sent into the government every month. So what it does is it provides immediate cash flow relief to businesses, right at the time that they're suffering those reduced revenues. So you can take advantage of that if you meet the qualification criteria, and those can be found on Canada.ca's website. So it is, like I said, fairly broadly available, and it's quite easy to apply. There's no formal application process. You just reduce your source remittances. The subsidy that you receive under this is taxable to the corporation or to the individual if you're an individual or partnership paying wages. It is taxable, so you do need to record the amount that you've received under the subsidy as taxable corporate or income. So that's just really something to consider when you're applying for that. The more anticipated one that I think it's been receiving a lot more publicity is the 75% wage subsidy. So this is something that they came out with after they released the 10%, realizing that the 10% subsidy just wasn't enough based on the amount of lost revenues that people were seeing. So this subsidy is available to small, medium, large businesses. It's more widely available that way. However, it does require that businesses show a significant decrease in revenues. Now, these revenues, you have to show at least a 15% decrease in revenues for March, and then at least a 30% decrease in revenues for April and May. You can apply, if you meet the criteria in March, but don't meet it in April, you can still claim the subsidy on the period, the reporting period that March's revenues are used to test. So you do reapply for it each month. Now, what you basically have to do is take your March of 2020 revenues, which would be your impacted revenues, and compare them to a previous period. Now, they've come out with two options for the periods that you can claim, that you can compare to, and that is either comparing it to March of last year, so comparing March of 2020 to March of 2019, or to take March of 2020 and compare it to the average of January and February of 2020. Now, this provides a little bit more flexibility for startups that weren't operating in March of 2019, businesses that have high growth, where they've grown a lot since last year, so their revenues are higher, but they're actually seeing decreased revenues from the beginning part of the year. So you can choose whichever reference period you would like, but once you choose that, you need to remain consistent with the other 2 months for calculation purposes. All right, so the calculation can be quite complex. They have put a lot of work into making sure that it is available and being used the way it needs to be used to provide the maximum support to employers without it being abused. Now, basically, like I said, the calculation is quite complex, but it's basically going to offer employers a subsidy of 100% of the first 75% of an employee's pre-crisis wages, up to $847 a week per employee. Now, there is no per employer maximum, so if you have multiple employees that you can have benefit from this, then you can use it for all of them if you are eligible. There's no limit on the amount that you can claim per employee. There are some special rules that are in place to prevent people who do not deal at arm's length from the corporation, so that would be anyone related to the corporation. So, family members, things like that. If there is someone not dealing at arm's length with the corporation, like I said, there are special rules that you just may need to wade through or contact your tax advisor to see if they can help you out with that thing. But the subsidy is also available for those owner managers, those related people who were previously on payroll with the corporation. So it does provide some relief to business owners as well. They have stated that while they're providing the 75% subsidy, they do want employers to make their best efforts to pay the other 25% to get employees back up to their pre-crisis wage amounts. So how they want employers to show that is unclear, but they are encouraging employers to make up that other 25% if they're able to keep employees at their full paycheck. Again, the subsidy that is received under this program is also taxable to the business that's received it, so it does need to be reported as taxable income. Just yesterday, big news in the subsidy world, they released actually a calculator that I am going to share. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to share that on my screen here. So the CRA released this calculator, which is something that we don't see too often with them sharing Excel spreadsheets. But they do have this this calculator. It is, I played around in a little bit yesterday, and it is quite complicated. A lot of detail required in here, but basically you can go line by line by your employees for different reporting periods and determine the maximum subsidy that you can claim. So it's quite new. I'm not sure if there are any bugs in it. We haven't actually gone through the process with any clients just yet. But just be aware that there are tools that the CRA is providing, given the complexity of these calculations, that you can utilize, or contact your tax advisor and they can help you wade through it. It may also provide information in a way that CRA can review it later on, because we are expecting quite a bit of that after they've provided all these subsidies, that they're going to want to go back and make sure that the eligibility criteria were met. So using this calculator may provide it in a way that CRA can easily assess. So that is available on the CRA's website. I am going to attempt to copy the link for this wage subsidy into the chat so that we can, so that you can easily find it. Just gonna put it in there. And let's see if it goes. So then you can easily click on there, have a look at the calculation. It's just to kind of prepare people for the applications. Applications are going to be started on April 27th, which is Monday. So I think they want to have people, a resource available for everyone so that they can make these applications right on that date, because they know that people are, you know, struggling financially right now. So they want to make it as easy as possible to say, I've already calculated my subsidy, here are my numbers, and click submit. They have noted that they are hoping to have cash flowing to the approved, for the application, sorry, the week of May 4th. So it is going to provide a little bit of relief there. I think initially they were thinking it was going to be a bit further out, but it's looking like they're able to hopefully get some cash to business owners sooner than later, because they certainly need it. They also have addressed the fact that there will be penalties associated with people who are making fraudulent claims under this program, because they're trying to get cash out to people in a really timely manner. They're sort of allowing things to go through with few roadblocks up front, which does lend itself to people wanting to get the free government money. Now they have noted that there will be penalties for people who fraudulently calculate their revenues, so making fictitious revenue transactions to meet the decline in revenues that's required. So it's really important to keep really good, transparent records of how you calculated your decrease in revenues, because though the subsidy may be easy enough to receive upfront, we are expecting a ton of audit after the fact, because they're going to be giving out large amounts of money. So they'll want to make sure that it got to the people who needed it and who actually were eligible for it. So just really important. That's the thing that we probably can't stress enough, is just to keep really good records, because more than likely this is going to get audited in the next couple of years. They're going to come back and be looking to make sure that people were eligible for this money. Now, if you claimed the 10% subsidy already because it was available and you were needing the cash flow now, if you claim the 10% subsidy, but you've now determined that you're eligible for the 75% subsidy, you can still make the claim for the 75% subsidy, and you would just reduce your claim for anything you received under the other one. So you can't double dip, but you can receive the 10% up front and then claim the 75% and just reduce your claim on that one. There, in the 75% wage subsidy, sorry, one last thing, there is another small thing in there where they're offering 100% subsidy on CPP and EI contributions for employees who are being paid but are on leave. So this would only apply if employees are not working at all, they're at home, but you're continuing to pay them to help with their cash flow considerations, and you'll receive the 75% subsidy. You can get a subsidy for the CPP and EI contributions that you make with respect to their payroll as well. So it's just reducing that cost to employers for making the choice to keep employees on even though they're not working. So that one, I don't know if we're expecting it to be as widely used, but it could be. But that is only applicable to employees who are at home, who are no longer performing any work. They need to be on leave with pay to receive that one. I think that's kind of my brief overview of those two subsidies. Now they are incredibly, especially the 75. There are a lot of factors to consider. We've got pages and pages of notes on these things. So they've done quite a good job to make sure that the subsidy is being provided to the people that need it and limiting the ability to abuse it. So it's important to understand the calculation that you're making, because there are a lot of little nuances in there. So if you do need help, I would suggest to contact your tax advisor and see if they can help you out with that calculation. Applications can be made through the My Business account, through a web portal, which we haven't seen yet, or through the Represent a Client program or application, which is what tax providers use to access your accounts with CRA. So if you're having a hard time finding the application, you can't get through it, you can likely contact your tax advisor there and have them help you process that application, because that is an option for that application. So I think that is basically all I had for that. I think I'm going to pass it over to Shannon. She's going to go over a couple of the loans as well as some individuals type support. And then once she's done, I'm going to come back and just go over some of the filing deadline changes that have happened for tax purposes, GST purposes, things like that. So once she's done with that, then I'll flip back over and then we'll start taking some questions.
Thanks, Ash. So one of the things that I first wanted to talk about is the Canadian Emergency Business Account, which is the $40,000 interest-free loan that is available to businesses. It is interest-free for a couple of years, and up to 25% of that loan can be forgiven if you repay it before the end of December 2022. So one of the conditions to be eligible eligible for this loan is you have to have wages paid from the business between $20,000 and $1.5 million in the 2019 year. And when you're doing the loan application, it's usually done online through the banks. So you're going to have online access for your bank, and you're going to have to enter a box 14 from your 2019 T4 summary. So if you have those amounts and your business number, you should be able to easily answer the few questions that are there. And I understand the process is very simple from people I've been talking to. And I also understand that the money is coming back to businesses' bank accounts relatively quick. One person I talked to had said they got it within 2 days of their application. So the Alberta Treasury Branch and the Credit Union are taking the loan application for the $40,000 and depositing it into your bank account. And so you get the money all up front. The RBC and the Bank of Nova Scotia are treating it as a line of credit until the end of this 2020 year. So basically you have to take draws on the line of credit as you need them. One of the things that you need to be careful with is this money is supposed to be for operating costs of the business that can't be deferred. So it can't be for new financing or restructuring financing. You can't be prepaying amounts with it. You can't be using it to pay dividends to management. You can't be using it to increase compensation to management. It has to be to pay your regular day-to-day operating costs that can't be deferred. And I think it's really important that you track these. So what we're recommending is you kind of keep some kind of list or spreadsheet that says when you do a draw in your line of credit, what you're using that money for, or if you've got the full $40,000 into your bank account, that you are tracking what you use that $40,000 for. There are a limit to the number of loans, I believe, that are available for the forgiveness. And if you aren't able to repay the loan by the end of December 2022, then it will convert to some type of term loan that will be interest bearing. So that's what I was going to talk about on the CEBA, or Canadian Emergency Business Account. The other program that is out there is a work sharing account. And this is a program that had been in existence before COVID and was kind of being phased out, but they have now extended it. And what it is if you have a drop in revenues of at least 10%, and you are going to drop your employees' working hours by 10 to 60%, those employees can apply for EI for the portion of their hours that aren't being covered. So if you decided that you were going to deduct or drop your employees' wages and only pay 50%, then they could apply to EI for the other 50% of their wages. Now, they wouldn't get the full amount of the wages that are lost, but they would get a percentage, the 50% of what they would be eligible for on EI. And when you go on EI, you're eligible for 55% of your wages, up to a maximum of $573 a week. So the workers would still be receiving less than what their normal 100% wages would be, but it would be a program that tries to keep more people working just at a reduced wages and using the EI system to help compensate them for. I think when, while the 75% wage subsidy program is running, that probably the better option would be to be going for this wage subsidy. But this EI work sharing program, I think, will go for a little bit longer. So perhaps that's something to be considering or looking at for after when the subsidy period ends. This, the work sharing program does have a little bit more paperwork. There is an agreement that has to be signed and submitted. You have to make an application before you're eligible to go on to this kind of program, and all your workers must agree to participate in it. Then once you are approved and are in the program, there is weekly reporting that needs to be done so that the EI program knows how much they need to pay. So it's a little bit more complicated, a lot more work, but it is just another option out there to try and keep people working. One of the last things I wanted to talk about is CERB, which I think lots of people have heard a lot about. There's been lots of applications into the program. This is the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, which is the $500 payment to individuals who have lost their job or stopped working for COVID reasons. It's a 16-week program. Again, you're eligible for $500 a week. You had to have stopped working due to COVID. So whether you are sick, whether you're looking after someone who is sick, whether you're having to stay home to look after children because the schools are closed or daycares are not open, or because you've lost hours or job, your hours, your working hours because of COVID. You have to not be working for 14 days before you can make the application. And they adjusted it so that you are eligible to earn up to $1,000 in those first 14 days. And in subsequent periods, you can earn $1,000 in the 4-week period and still be eligible for the $2,000. So basically, you cannot be on EI and CERB at the same time. Right now, they're trying to get everybody in and being paid through the CERB program. And after CERB ends, if you are not eligible, if you're still eligible, then you can make applications to the EI program to continue getting support in that way. The new thing that was announced today is support for students, post-secondary students who previously fell through the cracks for CERB. So there's a $1,250 amount that's going to be available for post-secondary students. It was just released today, so the application process and what needs to be done has not been released. So we don't really have any further information on that other than it's out there and will be available. I would guess that they're probably going to run it the same way that they ran the CERB program, and it would be best if students were set up for a My Account, and then we'll be able to apply for it that way. There's also some other grants out there for students to pay for tuition next year if they're volunteering in the community during this time when they're unable to work because there aren't jobs for them out there. So it's very new information. It's just kind of a general because we don't have any details yet, but that's what's out there right now. Ash, did you just want to finish up then?
Yeah, one other thing I think that they have talked about it as well, you know, we haven't addressed it yet and we haven't really seen any details on it, is they have also expressed that they may be also offering something like that SEBA loan, that the $40,000 loan. They may be offering something maybe similar to that to commercial rent for people who receive commercial rent, if they agree to forego or reduce the rent for the businesses that are renting from them. So we haven't heard a lot on that. We have heard that it's kind of out there, it's in the works. So that may be something that if you own commercial buildings that you rent out, that you may be able to get there. It looks like they're offering financing and potentially forgivable loans there as well. So something to keep your eye on if that might apply to your situation. Again, we don't have much information. They kind of just get out there, say that it may be happening, and then we sit and wait. I'm just going to go through the tax deadline changes that have been announced, and then I think we'll go through and start addressing any of the questions. So if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat, and then we'll have someone read them out and we'll address them as best we can. So I'm just going to share my screen again here. I think this is the one. Oh, this one is the one I want. Okay. There we go. So these are the tax deadline changes, and they can be found on the CRA's website. So it's canada.ca. So most people know normally we would be in the thick of tax season in the last 8 days here. But now the filing deadline has been extended from April 30th for personal tax purposes to June 1st of 2020. So you can file your return up until June 1st with no late filing penalties, and that is for everybody. So June 1st is the deadline for everybody with other than those who have self-employment income. Now the payment deadline has been extended. Normally taxes need to be filed and paid by April 30th of each year. The payment deadline has been extended to September 1st. So if you do owe on your taxes this year, you don't have to pay the balances due until September 1st without any interest calculated on that. So that's providing some relief to people as well. The self-employed individuals, their tax filing deadline was always June 15th. At this point, that remains unchanged. So they still get until June 15th of 2020. So if you've got a business schedule, you operate as a proprietorship, or if your spouse operates as a proprietorship, you have a filing deadline of June 15th, and that's the same as it was before. The payment deadline for any self-employed individuals has been extended as well to September 1st, so providing a little bit of relief there. Corporations, so any corporations that would have had a filing due date after March 18th and before June 1st have all been extended to June 1st. So that provides a little bit of relief. So your corporate tax returns need to be filed within 6 months of your year-end date. So if you had to file it by March 31st, for example, on a September 30th year-end, you would have until June 1st to file that return without any penalties. And then payment date for current year tax for corporations has also been extended to September 1st, which applies to balances and installments under Part 1 of the Income Tax Act, due on or after March 18th and before September 1st. So again, a little bit of relief there. Trust filing deadlines, normally for trust with a December 31st year end would be due March 31st. That's been extended to May 1st, so a little bit there. And then June 1st for anyone having a filing due date in either April or May. Again, payment is all extended to September 1st for them as well. Payroll remittances, I'll kind of skip over this other stuff. It's not quite as relevant for most individuals. Payroll remittances, so quite often it's the remittance that's due by the 15th of the month. There has been no extension to that. So they still want employers making their payroll remittances in a timely manner, same deadline as you've had before. So whether it was the 15th, the 10th and the 25th, or 3 days after your payroll, you still have to abide by those deadlines. So that does provide a little bit of relief for some businesses that are looking to get their filings done on time and have things paid on time. So that is basically all that we had to kind of present. I think now we can try to address the questions. So I don't know if someone is going to provide them to us, or Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to Louise, and then Shannon and I will pick them up wherever we kind of presented. We'll try to help you out.
Thank you so much, ladies. This has been fantastic. And actually, I see that Tim Shane from Community Futures has joined us. I am going to see if Tim could introduce himself, and then Tim is going to read the questions for us.
Hi, thanks, Louise. Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, so I work at Community Futures. We're a federally funded not-for-profit business and community development organization. We exist all over Canada. In Western Canada, we're all called Community Futures. In Eastern Canada, they're called something different. We provide 4 main areas of programming. I'm involved in 3 main areas. Business coaching, that's why I was late. I was busy with a client coaching them. Business coaching, that's completely free. You get to talk to me, woohoo, it's awesome. I work for you, I'm independent, I'm not selling anybody anything, I'm just trying to help you figure out stuff for your business. So that's the coaching model. We have training, that's typically through third party, other kinds of training. Sometimes we'll do workshops, etc. And business financing. So we do have a business financing program for small business up to $150,000. There is also an announcement last week for extra funding for Community Futures for financing. The details are yet forthcoming, so we don't know. We just have to wait and see for that. And then the 4th area that we're involved in, that not so much me, is the community development stuff. That's more my coworkers are involved in that. So I can go through the questions and read them out. And I would just perhaps throw out there that if the question, if the way that I read out the question, if there's more information that that particular person wants to add to maybe help the expert answer the question, then please do so in the chat box. But just so you know, I'll have to be scrolling up and down, back and forth between the questions if that happens. But so we've got here, the first one I do see is from Sharon. Is the $10,000 forgivable portion on this loan considered taxable income? So I'm assuming that would be like in a couple of years when it's forgiven.
So yes, the amount of the loan that is forgiven is considered taxable income, and you would have to report it as income in your on your tax return for that year it's forgiven.
Okay, so that would be in the year that it was forgiven.
Yes.
But not now, because it's right now it's a loan.
Because right now it's still a loan.
Okay, super. So Sharon, I hope I've covered that for you properly. There's one here from Julia. It's not really a question, but I don't know if this is critical or not, but it might be for sharing information. If there's any handouts or things that are going to be shared, then perhaps make arrangements with Julia Darling at the town of Edson for sharing that information. I assume
Actually, Tim, if I could just jump in there, we just want to be sure that we've captured out everyone that was attending. So for the 4 that are attending that weren't registered, if they could please contact Julie and just provide their information, that would be great.
Okay, super. Okay, from Carrie Ann with SEBA, can I use the loan amount to pay down my business visa, which has huge interest?
So that one, I might just get Ashley to help me out with this one, but I'm thinking that when they talk about what the $40,000 loan is for, it's to pay operating costs and not for restructuring debt. I'm not sure whether they would consider a visa payment, like a regular visa payment would be an operating cost for your monthly expenses that are put on there. The payment of existing balances, I would think would not be a normal operating cost. Ash, do you have your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. So I would say that paying off the existing balance, especially in a lump sum, would likely not qualify as one of the approved uses of the funds. I would say that in there it says that you can continue to make regularly scheduled payments. So if your visa requires a payment, of $1,000 a month, then I would say that that would likely be eligible, that $1,000. But if you were looking to pay off a large balance carrying forward that is not part of the required monthly payment, then I don't think that that would qualify. But I think that if they are requiring a monthly payment, that that would likely fall into that acceptable range.
I would also think the current monthly charges on it would fall into that range.
Yes, current monthly charges for sure, because that would be your operating expenses. So it shouldn't exclude people from using their Visa for convenience to purchase items even online, right? So if you've had current charges, I would say that those would qualify, as well as the required payment on a balance carrying forward if there was one.
Kind of as long as those payments are operating costs.
Yes, yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay, also from Carrie Ann, with a wage subsidy program, we can pay employees even though they are not working at all. Is that the idea behind it?
So that is the way that I have read it, and I've consulted with my partners as well, and I think that's kind of the way that we're reading it. Is the point of the program is to one of the major points of the program is to kind of keep your employees on, keep them paid, keep that relationship going, so that you're in a better position when you're able to open your business again, when you're able to get back up to normal operations. You're in a better position to just resume. You don't have to worry about calling people that you haven't spoken with in 3 months and say, hey, are you still around? Are you coming back? I think part of it is to keep that relationship. So you absolutely can pay them for hours they are not working. You can choose to pay them either their pre-crisis earnings, at which point the employer would be covering the 25% that's not covered under the subsidy. If you are not receiving any cash flows in, you can only pay them the 75% that is subsidized. All that CRA is asking is that employers say that they are doing everything they can to pay the other 25%. If you can't, then you don't have to. So if you've got employees who you've sent home, they are encouraging you to rehire those employees and apply under this subsidy program if you are eligible.
Okay, it just popped in my head, so I'll just ask a quick question. So when you say that employers have to say that they're doing everything they can, is that like similar to making a legal statement, an oath, or that kind of thing? We have a similar thing on our loan application. Right.
It's not clear. I think we'll find out more when we've got the application as to what they consider as making your best efforts. Like, I would say that if you are having an employee that is coming into work and earning you profits at this point, but your profits are, or your revenues are down, that you would want to show that you've tried everything to get them up to their pre-crisis earnings. If cash flows are available, I think that you would just want to make sure that you've got a really good reason as to why you aren't making that extra payment. But I'm not sure if it's going to be a legal requirement or not until we see that application. So at this point, the wording is very vague. It's very much that they have to attest that they're trying their best, but it's not requiring any, from what we can tell, it's not requiring anything more than that at this point, but we'll find out when we see the application.
Okay, so I apologize in advance if I get your name wrong, but I'm going to say that this is from Sheena. Typically, in order for an employee to apply for EI, they would require an ROE. However, for CERB, does an employee not need to be officially laid off? Do they not require an ROE to apply for CERB? We would like to keep an employee on our staff, however, may not be able to give them hourly work for a while. Would they be able to apply without us issuing them an ROE? I'm assuming if they can make $1,000, then this is the case, but I just wanted to clarify. Okay, so maybe part one is for the CERB, do we have to issue the ROE? Okay, so I don't know if Shannon's just clarifying something maybe on her computer, but you don't need an ROE for CERB because it may apply to
individuals who need to leave their work to go take care of children that are at home because they're not at school, if they don't have otherwise had childcare, and that would mean that they were not laid off from their employer. So having an ROE is not a requirement for CERB. So if you wanted to keep an employee on your staff, however, may not be able to offer hourly work for a while, if you didn't have to issue an ROE in the first place, then you don't have to do one for CERB. Now, the ROE requirements, as far as I know, I'm no payroll ROE expert, but you have to issue an ROE if there's an interruption of earnings of more than 7 days. So if you're not offering that employee earnings, let's say that they're not working for you, but you haven't terminated their employment for any reason, but there's still an interruption of earnings, there is still a requirement to issue the ROE for that interruption of earnings. But if you're keeping them on maybe 1 day or a half day a week where they're still having some earnings, and you don't need to issue that ROE, then they could potentially still apply for CERB if they're within that $1,000 threshold. Shannon, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
No, that's my understanding of it. And the point of not having to do the ROE is that they want you to be able to maintain your relationship with the employee throughout, so that they can work part hours if they need to, or that it's easy enough to rehire them and get them back on payroll again.
Okay, I think that one is done. This one is from Greg. Does the 75% subsidy apply to a business owner that pays themselves as an employee of an incorporated company?
So yes, assuming that that incorporated company meets the eligibility requirements of the subsidy, so being able to show that significant decrease in revenues, as long as the business owner was taking wages pre-March 15th, so as long as you weren't paying yourself by dividends beforehand, and then now we're like, oh, I can get a wage subsidy if I pay myself wages. So that is not allowed. You do have to be on salary or on wages prior to March 15th. And there are some additional limitations on the amount that you can pay yourself. So you aren't allowed to increase the payment to yourself to increase your subsidy post March 15th. So if you were only paying yourself, let's say, just to throw numbers out there, $1,000 a month prior to this, you cannot now increase your wage to $5,000 a month to take advantage of the maximum subsidy. But if you were previously, taking wages in a large enough amount, let's say you were always taking $5,000 a month, you can continue to pay yourself that and receive the maximum subsidy as long as your corporation is eligible for the subsidy. But yeah, it does apply to business owners as well.
And I'll just throw in, I think what you're also saying is that would still apply if they had regularly paid themselves both wages and dividends, maybe an annual dividend or something.
Absolutely, yeah. The dividend, it's just if they had not been paying themselves wages, they can't start now. And you also, there are restrictions on the ability to hire additional non-arm's length people. So if you are a business owner and you all of a sudden on March 16th hire your spouse to work for you, and maybe that actually happens if you need to make up some income, but they would not then be eligible for the subsidy. With non-arm's length or related individuals to the company, it's more restrictive in terms of what was happening before and then continuing that.
Okay, next one is from MS2. 2 questions. Is the 75% wage subsidy paid directly to the employer? And question number 2, which we can revisit if we forget, CEBA, C-E-B-A, can this loan be repaid anytime before the end of 2022?
Okay, so the wage subsidy, as far as we're aware, is paid directly to the employer because the employer would have already been out of pocket for those wage costs. So those wages would have already been paid to employees. So the subsidy is then received back to the employer from the government as a reimbursement, so to speak, of those wages.
Okay, and the CEBA, can this loan be repaid anytime before the end of 2022?
Yes, that loan could be repaid before the end of 2022. I would want to caution people that applying for the loan on day one and then repaying it on day two and being eligible for the forgiven 25% forgiven portion of it may look suspect to the government because the loan is supposed to be used for operating costs. So it would be my thought that if you're just getting the loan and then repaying it right away, the government could come back and say that you didn't meet the qualifications for this loan and for the forgiveness of the portion of it because you didn't use it for your regular operating costs. That would be my thoughts on that loan.
Okay, this next one is from Rickson Keys. Are business owners that take a wage eligible for the 75% wage subsidy or CERB? I think that's similar to what the previous questions were.
So yeah, I guess just to kind of to reiterate, they are eligible for the 75% wage subsidy, given that the business qualifies, meets the eligibility requirements, and then the CERB, I'll kind of provide what I'm thinking, and maybe Shannon can provide more clarification. So I would say if you are a business owner who is no longer working, because of everything that's going on, I would say that you also would be eligible for CERB. However, again, we would want to caution and just draw attention to the ethical aspect of things. When you are a business owner, you can control your earnings. You can choose to take wages in 1 month or another. So I would say that you would likely only want to apply for CERB if you are no longer earning income inside your company either. Just because you can choose not to take a wage in one period, I wouldn't say that would qualify you for CERB to say that you've lost your income while you're still earning income in a company but not actually earning any personal income. So I would just, I would say that as a business owner, you would definitely qualify for the 75% wage subsidy if you met the eligibility requirements. And for CERB, I would say if you are no longer earning business income in your company, then CERB would be an option. But maybe Shannon can provide a little bit more on that.
I would agree with Ashley. If you are no longer able to work because of CERB, because your business isn't operating, if you're not able to work because of this COVID and your business isn't bringing in you any money and you can't pay yourself a wage, then you would definitely be eligible to go on CERB as long as you meet all the other criteria for going on CERB to begin with.
Okay, next question is not really a question, but it just says here, Doreen has her hand up. So I'm not sure, maybe lower down in the chat box, which I'm not there yet. Maybe Doreen can type her question, or maybe I should be doing something for people who have their hand up. I'm not too sure about that.
Oh, I think you're good to go, Tim. Just keep going, buddy.
Okay, so this one's from Jackie. The calculation for the 75% looks quite complicated. I don't know, that spreadsheet looked pretty sexy to me. The calculation for the 75% looks quite complicated. How would you calculate the weekly gross pay when you have monthly payroll?
So I would agree. It is extremely complicated. I have gone through the legislation. I've tried reading all of the stuff there to figure out the gross weekly pay. I think that what we want to do is try our best. So if you've got monthly staff who are on monthly payroll because they're salary, let's say, I would say that you could reasonably say that their weekly salary is their monthly salary times 12 divided by 52. So that would work well for salaried employees. For hourly employees, you should have daily hours that you could use to apply to an hourly rate to figure out what their weekly salary would be. So I would say as long as you can come up with some reasonable allocation based on how you pay them, whether they're hourly or salary, it should be all right. But I agree, it is complicated and they haven't provided a lot of guidance on how they want that done. But those are just two possible suggestions for figuring that out. Because on the spreadsheet, I don't know if you've noticed, they provided two tabs for the most common payroll types. One is weekly and one is bi-weekly. So they have left out monthly payroll reporting periods as well as semi-monthly. So I would say you do your best based on the information that you've got, and make sure you keep great records.
Okay. Oh, something happened here. Okay, great. So the next one is from Dr. Megan Hawk. If you do rehire staff to give them the 75%, does the staff have to do anything specific with CRA to cancel their EI? Or will that be automatic once you sign up for the subsidy?
So yes, there is the potential for that. So I know that there used to be, and I don't have it in my notes here in front of me, but there used to be a requirement in there, and maybe it's still there, was that to qualify for CERB. So I'm assuming that these employees have gone on and claimed CERB if it was post March 15th that they got laid off. So if they were on CERB, they had to have had an interruption of earnings of at least 14 days. Now, to claim the wage subsidy, there was the requirement that if they were off for 14 days, that you couldn't claim the wage subsidy for that period because it was assumed that those people had gone on and claimed CERB. So it's probably a conversation to have with your employees to find out if they have made a claim for CERB for the period. And you want to make sure that that interaction isn't happening because they can't be on CERB and have you receiving the subsidy at the same time. But I would say that that calculation is not automatic. When you apply for the subsidy, it appears that you just provide your total gross payroll, the total subsidy that you're eligible for, and the number of employees. You're not, as far as I can tell, you're not required to provide details on the employees like social insurance numbers or anything like that for who you're claiming the subsidy for. So I would say it would not be an automatic calculation, and it may be something that you want to discuss with your employees. If you rehire them and provide the 75% subsidy, they could maybe contact CRA and say, listen, I got rehired, and they could repay that CERB amount potentially. But yeah, it would be a conversation to have with your employees that have been off for more than 2 weeks, and kind of figure out what's going to work best in that situation. But it will definitely require some communication with the CRA, which is not the easiest thing to do these days. Their phone lines are slightly busy. I don't know, Shannon, do you have anything to add to that? I know that there was the interaction stuff, but I don't have it in front of me in my notes.
My understanding was that if you did have somebody on CERB, either they had to repay their CERB or you were going to get a reduction of your subsidy by how much CERB benefit the employee had received.
So that might just be something that we see when we see the actual application. There may be something in there because I know that we will run into those situations where these people had been off because the details on the 75% subsidy weren't available yet. So they weren't waiting for that to come out. They wanted to go and get their CERB money to help with cash flow needs right now. And so I maybe there will be something in the application, but definitely there's no ability to double dip again with that. So it would have to be someone informing CRA of that change.
Hi guys, I hate to interrupt. This has just been so fantastic, but we are at 2:30. We had asked our wonderful presenters to give us an hour of their time, which they happily have volunteered to us. And I can't thank you enough. I am going to get one of you to please share again the name of your organization.
It's Mergaert, Barford, Williams, Joly, and Starkevich.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Thank you to Tim for reading our questions. And this presentation, as we stated to begin with, is being recorded and will be shared. For those who weren't registered, we won't be able to get that out to you. So if you could please contact Julia. And thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'd like to hear your feedback. You can reach out to Community Futures, to your town, to Martino, to your chamber. Have a great day.
Okay, so I guess that is everything. Again, thanks for everybody, and my apologies for screwing that all up there for not being on time. There is also, I would just say, the accountants that I have talked to have all been super prepared. So for any of those people who didn't get their questions answered, I would direct you to your accountant. They all seem to be right on top of it. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
And again, I'd like to thank everyone who participated. We have tried to record this, so if we can, we will place this on our website, and we will send out any additional information that we receive to that group that has participated. And thank you very much.